Are you awakening? What stage of awakening are you in? In this video, I'm gonna tell you some reference points to know where you are at your spiritual journey. First of all, this is a very unique journey, so it can look very different from one person to the other. But it can have some common things and it can be useful to know them to be able to have a general roadmap of where you're at. So one of the things that can look very different from one person to the other is the pace. And don't take this in a very masculine way, like a competitive way that I have to move forward, but it's just a reference to, because sometimes it's really useful to know where you could be a little stuck, or it can help you to keep you going when you know there's more to it. At the same time, this is not so linear, so it's not necessarily step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, but in general, this is the path that you can follow. But again, here it's very important to be very in contact with your intuition and to follow your own guidance. So take what resonates, leave the rest. I'm simply going to share my personal experience in case it can orientate you. So for some people this happens very fast. Maybe they have a near-death experience and overnight they awaken their spiritual gifts, but what is more common is to have a progressive spiritual awakening. And sometimes when you have a very extreme awakening, it's because you've already had some smaller triggers that you didn't listen to, or you didn't notice, or didn't pay attention to. So this is something orchestrated by your soul, and it's very important to trust and surrender to the process. So I put together different things I read and studied, and created my own way of understanding it that then I relate to the 3 astrology birth charts that I read. So you can see here 3 circles, and I'm going to describe every stage of awakening, like going from one circle to the other. And you have to understand that your natural state when you're born is the green one on the outside. But because we are born with an unconscious memory that already has a lot of baggage, that would be the red circle, we end up creating the blue circle that would represent the ego, and that is our personality, our comfort zone. And when we have a spiritual awakening, what happens is that we go from being asleep, believing that we are only this ego, and realizing we are more than that. And we start digging deeper and getting in touch with other parts of us, with other aspects of us that we suppress to be able to function with that ego. So the first stage of awakening is when we identify ourselves with that ego and we have a wake-up call that has been orchestrated by our soul to get in touch with what's beyond that. And there are different triggers that can wake you up, but it can often be a difficult situation, like a heart breakup, or like in my case, a bunch of heart breakups one after the other, or an accident, or that you find out that what you've been planning your life about is not longer available to you anymore, or that you wanted to have a certain life and you're not able to have it anymore, or that some kind of change that triggers some kind of ego breakdown that makes you question that ego, that makes you question that identity that you built, that makes you start asking questions. And in that stage, one can have a very high level of anxiety, or can be in a depression, or you could be grieving, or you could be in some kind of challenge that makes you look for answers, that makes you wonder what's going on, that makes you think there's got to be more than this. And then it's when you start opening up to the spiritual world. Maybe you take a yoga class, maybe you start trying meditation, maybe you try a spiritual workshop. You maybe start looking these answers in astrology or in meditation, or you get familiar with past lives and search for soul healing, something, or search for some healing modality that's beyond the traditional one. And that's what kickstarts the journey. And then it's possible that when you get in touch with that, you start awakening something that is beyond the rational mind. So maybe if you're more visual, maybe you start having visions, or you start having very vivid dreams or lucid dreams. Your intuition starts to be more present, or you feel like you start receiving messages or channel some kind of, or be in touch with something that is beyond this world. You start connecting with the heart, and you start feeling things more deeply. You get in touch with your vulnerability. You get in touch with feelings that you were keeping, that you were suppressing, and then suddenly with these situations that triggers them, they come up again. And that's what makes you search for answers, or search for a spiritual tool or a spiritual teacher that helps you with that. But what happens at every stage is that you're trying to go from one circle to the other. You have to cross a veil of illusion. And every time you try to cross a veil of illusion, your ego self-defense mechanisms are going to come up. And then you have a vision and you feel it in your heart, but then your ego mind starts to question it. Oh, are you sure you saw that, or you invented it? Maybe you have an amazing experience and you can feel it in your bones, but then your mind starts to question it, and then maybe some days go by and you forget about it. But then you have another experience that you cannot explain, but your ego tries to talk you out of it. And this is how it starts. It starts with your heart awakening, but then your mind starts to question it, because it wants to keep you in the safe zone, in the known zone, which is your comfort zone, which is your ego, your personality. The personality you built, which is only like a costume that you built with your memories from different thoughts and emotions and stories that you told yourself through your life, but not who you really are. So that's how it starts, with this heart awakening, but the mind not synced yet with it, still trying to be the leader of your decisions, still trying to lead your life, because it's what's been leading you most of your life, because it's what you've been training to do. The second stage is when you start becoming more conscious, like you have a spiritual practice and you have been starting to observe your thoughts, observe your emotions, to manage your emotions, and you're not a slave of them anymore. You're more present, you know yourself better, you have some more self-knowledge, and you're not so much in reaction mode. And then you start to find some information about manifestation and how to manifest the life that you want and how to live the life that you want. And many people stay here, like they're able to change some things, but not all of it, because here there are some highs, some lows. Sometimes you have an amazing meditation, you're in a beautiful state, then you have some experience that is very challenging, and so, but it's still kind of comfortable, like, yeah, maybe you still have you have your regular life, but you have this like a hobby somehow, like you spend some time meditating, or you maybe attend some workshops. And here some people get in the trap of positive thinking, like, oh yeah, everything is beautiful, everything la la la, but they're not really able to cross through their real dreams, the life that you really want to have, because it would suppose to question a lot more than that. And yeah, like you can stay here, but to go from here, it takes a lot of braveness, because you have to start leaving your comfort zone and really getting into the unknown. And sometimes here people is able to, maybe they had a hard breakup, but they're able to do some workshops or a little bit of meditation. They are able to lower their anxiety levels, and maybe they get into another relationship, they're fine, and they stay here. It's fine. We're always continually ascending, more awake or more asleep, because the level of consciousness in the planet is raising. So everybody is raising their frequencies and changes are happening. But you can be more intentional about it, and also this is very related to your unique quest, because maybe in your case you are demanded to go forward, or in your case you don't have to. So it's really personal. Then the next stage is for the brave ones, because here you already crossed into 4D. And in 4D you get in touch with the unconscious mind. And here it requires to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And it's when you go into what's called the dark night of the soul. Here it's like you take the red pill and you start seeing what's below things. And here, for example, you've been trying to manifest something for a while and it's not happening with only positive thinking, and so you start realizing that you have baggage and beliefs that you weren't even conscious about. So here you have to start digging, and you start digging into your childhood wounds, you start digging into past lives, into ancestral wounds, and so on. And you get in touch with really deep fears, because here you're not only talking about your own fears, but also maybe you get in touch with collective fears or family fears, and you really feel that this goes beyond your ego. And so your ego gets defensive here. Your nervous system is activated, and it requires that you work on deeper levels, not only on the most obvious things. And here you also, at the same time, you start awakening more of your connection to guidance, connection to your spiritual guides. Because when you get into this, you're going to start noticing more help from them, more signs and synchronicities that are indicating you the way. And here it's essential that you develop your self-love, because continuing on the journey is going to depend on how solid this self-love is. Another thing in this stage is that you start attracting experiences and people that are going to trigger you deeply. So it's not always an easy ride, because you start connecting with things that were buried deeper inside. So as you get into this hero journey, you start finding these challenges, but at the same time, you also start developing this braveness, this self-love. You start feeling more of your soul, more of your guidance. And all this energy that you were suppressing before start to be available for you. Once you face your fears, they start becoming your allies. You start using that energy to empower you. And you start being able to manifest at bigger levels. But you still have to keep very conscious, because you're only at the middle of the journey. And triggers are going to be there, and you're going to feel really tested. And here is where some people go back, or try to go back, because it's not always possible. That's it for today. Keep tuned for the following video where I explain the next 3 stages. You can grab my free guide below to know what stage of awakening are you in. Hit the like button if you got value. Subscribe to the channel, comment with your questions, and I'll keep answering them in the following videos. Bye bye.